Hey, let's talk about something that we all do, but we don't like to admit procrastination. Yeah, that thing where you just put stuff off, and then it's like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow or maybe the next day. You know the drill. The funny thing is, procrastination, it's ridiculously simple to beat, actually. And trust me, I'm not talking about some weird, hard to follow life hack that'll make you feel like you need a PhD just to understand it. I'm talking about simple, real ways that will get you moving when you're stuck in that I'll do it later cycle. So, why do we procrastinate? Honestly, I get it. It's easy to fall into that trap. We all have moments where something feels too big, too overwhelming, or just plain boring. You stare at that to do list like it's a monster, and suddenly, organizing your sock drawer seems like the more appealing option. But here's the thing, procrastination is really just a habit. And like any habit, it can be broken. But here's the kicker. This isn't going to be some five-step motivation guru nonsense that sounds amazing but is impossible to follow. I'm about to drop some really simple, practical stuff. Stuff that works and doesn't require you to change who you are or get some massive willpower boost. I promise, we're going to make procrastination a thing of the past, without the stress, without the guilt trip, and without making it some big, complicated ordeal. Let's break it down a bit. Why does procrastination happen in the first place? It's not because you're lazy, hell no. It's usually because there's a fear involved, or maybe a little self-doubt creeping in. Maybe you're overwhelmed by the task, or maybe it's just boring as heck, and you don't know where to start. And sometimes, we just freeze. It's like we want to do it, but we don't want to do it all at once. The truth is, procrastination often happens when we've built a wall of fear and uncertainty around a task. It feels too big, so we shrink back. We start worrying about how hard it's going to be or how it might not turn out perfect, and that just paralyzes us. But here's the good news. The first thing to do to beat procrastination is actually something super simple. Just start. I know. You've probably heard this before. It sounds like one of those duh pieces of advice that doesn't seem to help much, right? But hear me out for a second. What if the biggest hurdle is just the idea of starting? What if, instead of thinking, I have to finish this huge project, you just focused on doing the first step? And by the first step, I mean the tiniest, easiest action that can get you moving. Maybe that's opening the document or writing the first sentence. Or, let's be real, picking up the phone to make the call you've been avoiding. Starting is often the hardest part, so break it down and make it tiny. It's like peeling an onion, layer by layer. Once you get started, you'll realize it's not so bad. And hey, even if it feels hard in the beginning, just the act of starting gets the ball rolling. Now let's talk about how to make that first step actually feel easy. You ready? Here's a trick. Don't think about the task itself. Don't even think about finishing it. Seriously, all you need to do is think about just this moment. Just think, I'm going to focus on this one tiny thing for 5 minutes. That's it. Not even a whole hour, just 5 minutes. Set a timer if you have to. You'll be amazed at how much you can do in just 5 minutes. And most of the time, once that timer goes off, you'll keep going. Why? Because you'll be in the flow. You'll have crossed that invisible line from procrastination to action. And once you're in motion, it's so much easier to keep going. You know what's funny? It's the thinking about the task that's harder than the actual doing. Like when you finally sit down and write that email, it's not as bad as you thought, right? But the whole time before, you were imagining the worst-case scenario, building it up in your mind. Let me tell you something. You're not the only one who's done that. I've been there, staring at the screen for 30 minutes, debating if I should even try. But once I started, boom, that first sentence flows, and suddenly I'm done with the whole thing. Simple. Okay, so now that you've got the idea that starting small is the key, let's talk about something that trips a lot of us up: perfectionism. I mean, how many times have you procrastinated because you wanted things to be just perfect? The right time, the right tools, the right mood. It's exhausting. And honestly, it's a trap. Perfection is overrated. Look, the reality is this. Done is better than perfect. That's right. Just get it done. You can fix it later, you can improve it later, but the key is to stop waiting for this mythical, perfect moment. If you're waiting for the perfect time to do anything, you're going to be waiting forever. The sooner you get something out of the way, the sooner you can improve on it, change it, and get even better. Perfectionism is just another excuse to procrastinate, and I'm calling it out. You don't need to have everything figured out before you start. In fact, starting before you're ready is often the secret to breaking free from the procrastination trap. Let's do a quick recap here, because I want you to leave this video ready to go. First up, just start. Break the task down into something ridiculously small and easy to begin. It's like tricking your brain into action. Second, make it easy by setting a timer for just 5 minutes. Don't think about the whole task, just focus on this moment. And finally, ditch perfectionism. Don't wait for everything to be perfect, just get it done, and you can always make it better later. So, next time you're staring at that task and thinking, I'll just do it tomorrow, remember, procrastination is ridiculously simple to beat. It's not about willpower or magic, it's about starting small, focusing on the present, and just doing it. Okay, so we've talked about getting started and how to trick your brain into taking action with those little 5-minute bursts. But let's be real, sometimes, even when we get the ball rolling, we can still hit a wall. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. You're on a roll, you're typing away, everything's good, and then, bam, you suddenly remember something else. Or, even worse, your brain tells you, I'm kind of tired of this, let's check Instagram for 5 minutes. That 5 minutes turns into 30, and now we're back at square one, right? It's tempting to think of procrastination as a big, monstrous thing that you either defeat once and for all, or it's going to haunt you forever. But here's the deal. It's not one big battle. It's a bunch of tiny battles that you win along the way. And the truth is, some days it's just about getting back on track when you slip off. Think of it like trying to eat healthy. You know how it goes. You have a salad for lunch, and then maybe a donut in the afternoon, and you think, oh, well, I ruined the day. Guess I'll just start over Monday. But here's the thing. One donut doesn't ruin everything. And one distracted moment in your work doesn't mean the whole day is shot. What matters is that you get back to it, even if it's just a tiny step forward. Now, one of the biggest obstacles to overcoming procrastination is how we talk to ourselves. I mean, we're our own worst critics, right? How many times have you told yourself, I'm so lazy, or I'm just not disciplined enough for this? And then what happens? You feel crappy about yourself, and then it's even easier to put things off. It's this vicious cycle where the procrastination feeds into your negative self-talk, and suddenly, you're not just avoiding the task, you're avoiding your own potential. But here's the truth. You're not lazy, you're not a failure, you're just stuck in a pattern. And the first step in breaking that pattern is giving yourself a little grace. Procrastination isn't something that defines you, it's something you do. And just because you procrastinated once or a million times doesn't mean you're doomed to do it forever. It just means you need to reset. I'll give you a quick personal story. I used to be the king of procrastination. I'd write one email, then check my phone, write another sentence, then check my email. And before I knew it, it was like 3 p.m., and I hadn't really accomplished much. I remember this one project where I had to write an article, and I kept pushing it to the next day. Every time I sat down, my brain screamed, nope, not today. And I'd give in. Then one day, I realized I was making this way bigger than it needed to be. So I did what I always recommend to others now. I let myself off the hook. I told myself, it's okay if it's not perfect. Just write one paragraph. Don't worry about the rest. And guess what? That one paragraph turned into 2. And then before I knew it, I'd finished the whole thing. Not perfect, but done. And that was way better than nothing. This brings me to another huge part of breaking procrastination, lowering the pressure. Sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves to be flawless, to do everything at the highest level possible. And I get it. We all want to be great at what we do. But perfectionism, like I said earlier, is a trap. It keeps you stuck in the what-if cycle, where you're always worried about messing up. The thing is, messing up is part of the process. I'm not saying aim for failure, but aim for progress over perfection. You can always tweak it later. So here's a simple shift in mindset that'll blow your mind. Stop expecting every task to be a masterpiece. Start expecting to make progress, not perfection. Do that one thing that moves you forward, even if it's messy. Just get it done, and you'll see how quickly things start falling into place. All right, let's bring this home. Procrastination isn't some insurmountable monster. It's just a habit, and habits can be changed. The trick? Start small. Take that first step, no matter how tiny. Break it down, make it easy, and don't get hung up on being perfect. Remember, progress always beats perfection. Every little win builds momentum, and before you know it, you're crushing things you used to avoid. And hey, don't be too hard on yourself. Procrastination doesn't define you. It's just a bump in the road. If you stumble, reset, and start again. What matters is that you keep moving forward. You're capable of so much more than you realize, and it all starts with that first, simple step. So here's the challenge. Right after this video, pick one thing you've been putting off and do it for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. No excuses. You'll see how much easier it gets once you start. If this resonated with you, hit the like button, share it with someone who could use the nudge, and don't forget to subscribe for more. You've got this. Go make it happen. I'm rooting for you, always. Catch you next time.